Okay, congratulations on choosing a brokerage company. Now, if you've been in there and digging around a little bit, you're probably starting to see some of these terms pop up, like a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, taxable account, mutual funds, all of these things that are popping up to make choices about. And so in this video, we're going to specifically focus on the type of account that you will need so that you can have your fund placed into that account. Okay, so kind of think of this as like a container, if you will, or like a bucket for your funds or stocks or bonds. You can actually put a combination of those things into each of these different types of containers. And they all offer up different things. There are different limits about how much you can contribute. There are different tax implications with each of them. I'm going to go over that kind of briefly. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that because I don't want to make your head spin. But I do want to go over these different options so that you feel confident, you feel like you have the knowledge. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go over the different types. And just so you know, too, there is one more type I'm going to go over in a following video, which I call taxable account. And that's really just like kind of like a plain old account that you can put your funds, mutual funds, stocks, anything into as well. Um, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay, so I want to go over these choices first, and then in that following video, go into more detail about that taxable account. What I do want you to know is that you can have all of these accounts. Okay, so you're not limited to only having a Roth IRA or only a traditional IRA or only a 401k or only a taxable account. You could actually have all of these, but you do have to be careful about if you're contributing to multiple ones because there are limitations about how much you can contribute. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to keep it really simple and just break down the different types so that you can start to get a feeling for which one may be the right one for you. And I'll kind of point out too, based on what your goals are with your money, whether they be maybe to build up a bunch of money. Say you want to retire early, there would be a special way to do that as opposed to like, oh no, I know I'm just going to like save long term and my plan is to save until I'm like, in my 60s maybe. Then there would be, other options, right, for you to look into. And these are pretty much the very like traditional ones that are available to you. Now you can also just trade. And in this course, I don't really talk about that, but you can have a trading platform and you could be trading stocks in and out of, say, just an account. Okay. But there are a lot of tax implications if you do that. There are a lot of fees if you do that. That's why I usually don't recommend that to compound your money or build your money fast, because you can, if you're pretty knowledgeable in trading, you can build up your money quickly, but it takes quite a bit of education and quite a bit of practice. And I'll go over that more in the course, kind of give you, little hints and little tips around how you can learn more so that you can educate yourself and feel more comfortable when the time is right for you to start getting into trading, getting in and out of the market when you want to. Really, for the purpose of this course, we're just focused on investing monthly, putting money from your, say, your savings account, from your income, from a checking account, and pulling it right into one of these containers and then having a fund or a couple of funds or some stocks, bonds, a combination of those things in those containers that are just earning interest over time. You're watching the market and kind of seeing, okay, yeah, it's kind of going up, and you can make adjustments here and there, but we're not doing this really actively. We're not really sitting and watching it and making a decision every day and every week. You might be making an adjustment every quarter or every 6 months or every year to these funds. Okay. And so let's go ahead and get into these different types. Now, you have the options of like a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, and a 401k. Okay, so basically think of these, like I said, as containers. Okay, and they're each treated differently. So what I want you to know is that how it works is you have income that comes to you. Now, normally when people, like, let's say they trade, your income comes to you, it's taxed right away. And then any leftover money you have, you use to pay your bills, you use to put in your savings, you use to buy things you need, and, also maybe invest with that money, right? So the key thing to note there is when it's taxed, okay? That's what makes the difference in these different options here and to these different containers. Now, with a Roth IRA, when you receive your income, you can basically, you're going to get your income, it's going to be taxed, and then you can put any contributions, which is an amount of money that you decide, to be sent over into this container and hold on to a fund. That money has it gets taxed first, and then you can contribute into that fund. Okay. And the withdrawals are tax-free in retirement years. So once you hit a certain age, which we're going to go over, you can have that anything that you earn as well as anything you contribute can be pulled out, withdrawn, tax-free. Okay. So that's a great benefit. They do that on purpose, right? They want you, the government, when I say they want you to hold on to your money for a long period of time. And so in that process, the reward is basically you get your earnings tax-free, okay, if you hold on to it for a long time. Now, with a Roth IRA, there are contribution limits. So for the year 2024, it's 7,000 a year. It's 8,000 if you're 50 plus. So they allow you to do what they call catch up. Okay, if you're older, they allow you to add more in. Now, this contribution amount changes from year to year. Okay, so most likely in years ahead, it goes up usually about $500 a year. Usually that happens, around the change of the year, so you can look that up pretty easily. And what I want you to know is that with your brokerage account, they will cut you off. So if you have money that is being transferred into your Roth IRA, you don't need to worry about like, oh my gosh, am I hitting my limit? Usually they will alert you or let you know that you've hit that amount, and then they will stop you. Okay, they'll cut you off. And then you can divert that money to maybe another fund or maybe your taxable account. Okay, so a good plan may be to like contribute to your Roth IRA first, and because you're going to get those tax benefits, right? So you would max out your contributions to your Roth IRA, And then anything else, anything additional, you could add into, say, a taxable account. Yes, there are income limits to a Roth IRA as well. So if you're making 146,000 or more, then the government, they say, no, you cannot contribute to a Roth IRA. Okay, so that may also be a limitation for you if you're making more than 146,000, and that's for single people. So usually they double that, if you're a couple. So just know that if you're making more than that, then the Roth IRA may not be for you. Okay, then you may want to go to, say, like a traditional IRA or put it in like a taxable account, depending on your plans with this money, which we will get into. So before I get into any of these other rules and, things about withdrawal, I'm going to go into the next choice, which is the traditional IRA, because I can compare with you those other things and kind of help you, navigate it and make your decision. But with a traditional IRA, basically the way this works, the benefit to this is that, let's say you make your income, let's say it's 100,000 for the year, and you decide that you want to contribute let's say you have 5,000, okay, instead of the 7,000, you can contribute up to 7,000 in the traditional as well. But let's say you just have 5,000 this time that you want to contribute. And so what ends up happening is you get to contribute that money pre-tax, which is really great, which means that instead of say you're at 100,000, you would basically get the benefit of taking that 5,000 off of your income, okay? And then you'll only end up paying the remainder. So you'll end up getting taxed on the remainder, is what I mean. All right. So if you had 100,000, you subtract 5,000 from that, then you're at 95,000, right? And you only get taxed on that rather than the 100,000. Okay. So if you wanted to, you could contribute up to 7,000 a year into that account. Again, it has the $8,000 if you're 50 plus, so you get the catch up on that too. But really the benefit here is that you get to kind of like get the benefit of the lower tax rate on your income right now. And then also you get to put your money in an investment account and let it grow over time. Now, the downfall to this is at some point that money has to get taxed, okay? And so what they've done is they say when you withdraw your money, let's say you do that when you're 60, 70, whenever, or even 50, okay? Like you can withdraw it in earlier years, but there are penalties if you do that, and we'll go over that. But let's say you decide, when you're in retirement years to do this, then that's when you'll get taxed. Okay, so if you pull that money out, you will get taxed at that rate. Now, we don't know what that rate will be in the future, right? It could go up over time. So I used to be a huge fan of traditional IRAs. Way back when I first started investing, I thought this was so great because, I could basically get like my income lower, get the income lowered so I could get a lower tax rate. And I thought that was a great idea. But now, and I did plugged a lot of money away into a traditional IRA and also a 401k, which we'll talk about soon. And now I feel like my money's trapped in there because I've saved up a bunch in my early years, and this is something that I'm a big proponent of, which is, when you're younger, you tend to have more energy. You tend to want to get after it more. That may be with a business or with working with somebody, or working for somebody. And you usually have more energy to work longer hours, or, to put more energy into a business. And so you have a better chance really of making more, I think, in your younger years. Now, that traditionally is not the case, right? People tend to make more over time because they're very bought into traditional society, our traditional work environment, which is, you make more over time. And that is true. You probably will, have an increase in income over time, but it does depend on you as an individual, okay? Because some people have the mindset of, I want to work harder in my younger years and then take it easy earlier in life. Say when I turn 35 or 40, I would love to see the world more and, have it a little bit more easy. Um, so that mindset's coming in more with people rather than like, I want to work and work and work and work harder and harder as I get older. That's really hard to do. And many people that I work with, they're just burnt out, by the time they're 50, they're tired, they're like, I've been working my whole life, all these years. Um, and so this is something to consider, right? When you are making this decision, really know yourself here. Like, really ask yourself, what is your goal with your money? Because if you're going to tell me that you're more like the person that I was describing, which is like someone who wants to work harder earlier and plug away and put a lot of money away now to let it compound, sooner and faster over the years, then you probably want to lean more into the Roth IRA and a taxable account. But if you are more the like, say traditional, I'm probably going to like step up over time and probably work. I see myself working for like 20, 30 years, and I'm okay with that. You'll probably want to go more like the traditional IRA or the 401k if that's available to you at your work. So that's kind of like a very simple, comparison, right, between two different worlds. Now, the traditional IRA, it doesn't have any income limits for contributing. So if you're, say, again, if you're someone who's making more than 146,000, then the traditional IRA may also be a great option for you. So let's say you're at 150,000, or 175, something like that, then the traditional IRA would probably be a great option for you. Okay. So now to go into the 401k, the 401k is very similar to a traditional IRA. They both allow you to contribute your income pre-tax. So in this case, again, you would make an income, let's say at a job where they offer a 401k to you, and then you would take off that amount that any amount that you've designated to go into your 401k. What's nice is that the employer, generally, when you set up a 401k, you choose a percentage, like an amount that you want to come right off of your paycheck. Okay, so it does lower your paycheck, right? And generally, people get really worried about that, but I will tell you the 401k is a great, great container. It's a great way to build up your money, let it compound and grow really fast without it really kind of like having too much of an impact on you. I find that for a lot of people who have a hard time with investing, a 401k is great because that money's just taken right off your paycheck. So it's almost like, okay, I don't have it to spend anyway. And so making that decision is the hardest part, right? To say, okay, I want to contribute 10% of what I'm making into my 401k. And they do usually have a limit as well, because you're only allowed, you see here, to contribute 23,000 a year. So you can calculate that, basically taking your pay and putting in some percentages to see how much that would be per month for you. Don't feel like you have to contribute that full amount. You can do much less. You don't have to do that full amount. So I usually tell people a good way to start is to like pick a small percentage first. And then once you see that you can live on that paycheck and you're fine, then go ahead and increase the amount months later, when you're ready, so that you feel comfortable with that. But just know that, yes, it comes right off your paycheck. And then the money that you have remaining is taxed. Okay. The income basically, that's remaining is taxed. So think of that money as coming right off of your pay, going right into your 401k, investing in the funds that you choose in that 401k. And then basically whatever remainder you have is the money that gets taxed, right? So that's another great benefit to this. Downfall again is that at some point the government wants their money and it will get taxed when you withdraw the funds, when you withdraw the money. Okay. So just know that down the road, it will get taxed. The contributions and the earnings, okay, will get taxed. So as you can see, there are different options here. Really, I think it's kind of dependent on the amount of income that you're making and also your plan for your money. So if you know that, let's say in 5 years or 10 years, you want to build up this account and you may want to use that to invest in real estate or something like that, then a Roth is probably your better bet. That's probably the better option for you. And then if you're more leaning towards like, I think I'm just going to build up this account for a long, long time, let's say 20 years or plus 30 years, to get you into your retirement years, probably a traditional IRA or 401k is going to be your better bet. All right. So let's go down to some of these other comparisons. Now, employer sponsored basically means like, is an employer the one that's like doing this for you? No. With a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, there's no employer involved, okay? You are the person deciding. Just like you were the one who chose your brokerage account, you're basically the person making the decisions here. Now, with a 401k, yes, it's employer sponsored. The employer decides to host the 401k. They also have all of these funds, that are kind of like chosen, and you have to pick the funds out of that list. You get to choose what funds you want your money to go into. Okay, so that is where you get to decide. Now, because of that, and we're going to get into this, because of that, because there's a list of funds that are pre-chosen, it does limit your choices, and it kind of does also limit your ability to I would say to grow your money, because there's fees involved. Usually the fees are a little bit higher with 401k funds that are chosen for you. And also it ends up being like not the best choices sometimes in the funds. At least when I've looked at funds that people are given to choose from, I'm always like, oh God, these kind of suck, like some of them are really bad. So Just know that you may not have like a great like buffet, right, of choices there. Um, so just know that going into a 401k. Withdrawal rules, this is where things kind of start to get a little bit tricky. And so I'm going to go over withdrawal rules and how, like things can be withdrawn. So with a Roth IRA, basically when you withdraw, it is tax-free after age 59 and a half, completely tax-free. If the account's held for 5+ years. So as long as you start the account, in your earlier years, you even maybe say when you're 50, and it could be, when you're 20, right? But as long as you start it and you have 5 years in, then when you withdraw, and you hit 59 and a half, everything is tax free because you already paid taxes on the money, and your income was already taxed, and then you put whatever amount in, right? Does that make sense? So in this case, the what I want you to see is that there's a difference between contributions and your earnings. Okay, so what you contribute to these accounts is that money that you have that's yours. It's like it came from your income, you decided to put it in. Okay, that's a contribution. An earning is something that you get from having your money in the account. So it could be the interest, the dividends, anything like that is considered an earning. Now, with a Roth, at any time, you can take out contributions. Okay, you're allowed to do that. And because that money is yours, you already paid tax on it. If you decide you want to take it out, you can. Now, what ends up happening though is where people get confused is with the earnings. Okay, so you have to be careful around how much you take out because if you take out the earnings too, as you can see here, that could be subject to your penalties and taxes because the earnings haven't been taxed yet. Okay, your contributions have, but your earnings haven't. So at some point, you're going to have to pay tax on the earnings, and that's called capital gains tax. Okay, so with a traditional IRA, you get taxed at a regular income after age 59 and a half. Okay, so to withdraw the money, basically you're waiting until you're 59 and a half, and then you're taxed at a regular income rate, whatever that income is that you have at that point, whatever that tax rate is on that income, that's what you're getting taxed at. Okay, so, and again, we don't know what that's going to be when you turn 59 and a half, right? If you do decide to withdraw the money early, there is a 10% penalty and taxes on your early withdrawals, unless there's exceptions there, right? And there's a list of exceptions. I'm not going to get into that, but it's, things that may be like emergency type things that you would, use the money for. And you can find that pretty easily online, that list of things. All right. The same goes for a 401k. Now, as you can see here, to withdraw from a 401k, they really don't want you to. It almost acts like almost similar to a traditional IRA. They do have this $1,000 emergency that you can pull out, but I think there's also rules around you have to like find a way to get that back in there. So there's like rules around, again, withdrawing from a 401k. Generally, they like to see you pay it back if you are going to do that. And there's also the early withdrawal penalty. So there's 10% penalty, taxes on early withdrawals within the 401k as well. So you can see they're kind of like deterring you, right? With a traditional IRA and a 401k. And the point to that all is to like encourage you to like keep the money in there for a longer period of time. And so once again, be thinking if you're going to plan on, using this money to build up over, say, 10 years and want to take it out, and you're in your younger years, you probably want to lean more towards the Roth IRA, right? But if you're getting, like if you're 50 and you have 10 years to go, and your plan is to hold on to this for, say, 10, 20 years, then you may want to lean more towards the traditional IRA or 401k. Because, if you're doing it in your later years and you're going to hit that 59 and a half and you're okay, around your income and, all of that, then you want to lean more towards these, the traditional IRA and 401k options. But always know that you can take that money out. It's going to be penalized if you do, right? And you'll get kind of taxed, once again, on that money. So it's not like a great benefit to you, right? To have a penalty plus taxes. You'll quickly see, that you pull that money out and then you're like, what happened to the money when it comes tax time? You'll be surprised at that bill that comes. Now, required minimum distributions. This is basically just something that they came up with to make people start pulling money out at some point. They didn't want people to just like hoard all their money and keep it in there and then never pay, or never pull the money out. So, and also pay, right? They want their tax money at some point. And the only way to do that is if you're pulling the money out. Once you're pulling the money out, then they can tax the money. So, with a Roth IRA, there's no required minimum distributions. That actually came into law. It changed. And so there's no required minimum distributions on a Roth IRA, which again is a benefit if you want to build up your money. And also they don't care because you already pay taxes, okay, on your contributions, which is usually the bigger chunk of the money. It's usually your contributions. Your earnings are like the interest and the dividends and things that you make on those funds. So they probably don't care as much about the earnings. That may change, in the future. So always kind of be looking at these things, at these rules, because they do change over time. And the government's been getting pretty sneaky about, how they want to tax people. So I won't get into that in this course, but yeah, just be looking all the time. With a traditional IRA, they do want you to be pulling out. They have a required minimum distribution at age 73, and that has changed over the years. The age has gone up. And also for the 401k, it's the same. So again, think of the 401k and the traditional IRA as very similar. In fact, if you ever end up having a 401k at an employer and then you stop working there, you can have your 401k moved into a traditional IRA at a brokerage company. So know that, if you decide to retire or leave, you don't have to keep it in the 401k. You can actually have it moved, and you want to fill out the forms and do that properly with your brokerage company. They'll help you transfer it over. You do not want to have that money cashed out because it will all get taxed. So you want to make sure it is moved over properly. And the brokerage companies can help you do that. They have forms that make it very easy for you. And then once it's in that traditional IRA, you may have then more options. You can pick your own funds, your own stocks, your own bonds, things that you want to be invested in. So that's something to note too. Now, there are benefits though to having the 401k, and that's where I want to get into this next line, which is employer matching. Okay. So the reason that 401ks are so magical is because of employer matching. With a Roth and traditional IRA, it doesn't go through your employer, it comes from you. So there's no employer matching. All right. But with a 401k, oftentimes they'll use this as like a bonus, an enticement for people. And so what they'll do is they'll say, if you contribute a certain amount, we have employer matching and we'll do 10% on whatever amount you contribute. We'll add in 10% on top of that. So you can think of it as like a little bonus to you. They used to do back in the day, it was really amazing, dollar for dollar matching. And I would tell everybody, if you have a 401k and they do dollar for dollar matching, max it out like crazy because a dollar for dollar matching is so much money. It builds up so quickly. Most employers don't do dollar for dollar anymore. It's hard to even find like 50 cents to the dollar. They'll do like 2%, or 10%. So you have to look into that with your employer. Sometimes you have to ask about it, if they do offer the matching. But this would be something to be very aware of because this would then encourage you to contribute more to your 401k. If you think of it this way, if you decided to max it out and do the 23,000, you're going to get more. Like, so if you do that 23,000, you get 10% on top of that 23,000. It's much more on top of that maxed amount of 23,000 that they're giving to you. So think of it that way. Okay, that's like a bigger bonus for you. So it encourages you to increase that amount that you're contributing. The other benefit is, if you are maxing it out, you're dropping your income down and that amount that gets taxed at tax time. So your income level is actually shown to be lower. So you would end up paying less in taxes as well. Now, remember, at some point you will pay taxes though, okay? So it's not like you don't get to pay taxes. At some point you will. But again, this is a way to help build up that account faster, sooner. If you're able to do that now, you give it more time to compound, right? So these are all like the little hacks that I'm trying to show you guys within these different containers and things to be thinking about, because I want you to maximize, not only like how much you're able to contribute, but also thinking about taking advantage of things like, taxes and, the penalties and avoiding those, whatever you can do to, make your money go further, right? Okay, so the very last thing is the investment options. You do have a very wide range of options usually in a Roth and a traditional IRA because you have pretty much everything at your disposal that they have at that brokerage account that you joined. And so anything that they have there, you can basically invest in. You could even explore things like real estate and all of that. There are some fun things that you can do within some of these accounts. So you would just have to research that. But the thing to know, again, with a 401k is you're limited. to just the list that they give you. Okay, so your employer is going to give you a packet. There's going to be a list in that packet, and you're going to have to take the symbols and the names of those funds and plug them in to Yahoo Finance one by one and take a look at them. Okay, and so in this course, we're going to go through your options when it comes to the types of funds that you could get at, say, Vanguard or Fidelity, even ETFs that you can buy on pretty much any trading platform. I'm going to go over those quite a bit in this course, but I'm not going to be able to go over the list of funds that you have at your particular company through your 401k. You would have to take each of those symbols and plug them in to Yahoo Finance one by one. But I can guarantee if you go through this course, you're going to educate yourself in how to do that. Okay, so you'll feel knowledgeable in, oh, I know how to take this symbol and put it in and take a look at a chart and decide, if it's a fairly well-performing fund, and you'll be able to look at the expense ratio, so what the fee is, and what it's invested in. Okay, you'll be able to see all of that in Yahoo Finance. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. We are going to get into the taxable account. It is much simpler, right? And basically, to kind of like give you the comparison with these and to kind of help you see, with a taxable account, basically you are contributing after tax as well. Okay, so you make your income, you pay the tax on that income, and then whatever you have left over, you can decide how much you want to put in to your investment account. And I do highly recommend having a taxable account no matter what. I found that out over many years that it was like, oh, I actually do want to retire early. And so I don't want to worry about, am I going to get penalized and what my tax rate will be in the future. I just want to pay the taxes now and be done with it and have that money to put into whatever funds I want to put them into and pull it out whenever I want to. I don't want to have all these rules and like worry about contribution limits and all of that. So a taxable account also really benefits you if you have more to contribute. Okay, so let's say that you're really going to go gung-ho on this, and right away you're like, oh, I know I'm going to invest more than 7,000, in a Roth IRA. Then you would, let's say you're going to do 10,000, total. Then you could do 7,000 in your Roth and 3,000 into your taxable account. Okay, so that would be the other reason to have the taxable account. So I wanted to show you that with these as different containers. I wanted to also talk about that so that you understood you have that option too with the taxable account. Okay. All right. So good. I'm so glad you guys are watching this video. We're going to get into the taxable account pretty soon. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.